You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome to episode 60 of the Soulforge podcast.
Welcome to the Soulforge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Sean Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soulforge.
Hello, everyone. It's your ever-present host, Sean, coming at you. How's everybody today? Hope you're all doing wonderful. What about that ear infection? Is that all taken care of? How about your stub toe? Did you get that looked at? Hope your tests came back negative. Hope you got that promotion. Just hope you're all doing wonderful. See, Mark Maron of the WTF podcast, that's how he starts his show off, and I thought I would try it for this episode. It has been a year since the Soulforge podcast was released. This is the 1-year anniversary super spectacular, so it's more of a what's been happening kind of show. Well, what has been happening? So many things. I've been thinking about this episode for a while, what to do. Did I want to do a clip show? Did I want to put a small snippet of each episode inside this one here? No, that's too much editing, too much work. It'd be incoherent, and it doesn't really encapsulate the theme that I'm trying to go for here. What am I trying to go for here? I'm glad you asked. I'm trying to give you maybe a rundown of what the Soulforge has accomplished, what I've wanted it to do, my thoughts on if it actually worked or not. But before we do that, I just wanted to thank everybody out there for sticking with the podcast through the last year. All the guests that I've had, the feedback that I've received, it's all wonderful. So maybe that's where I'll start. First, we'll just talk about all the different people that I've had on the podcast over the last 360 some days.
Hi, my name's Colleen.
My name is Erin.
My name's Amanda.
My name is Ryan Baird.
Hi, my name is Mallory.
My name's Shannon.
Hi, my name is Jamie.
So the first people I'd like to thank, of course, are my brothers Robin and Curtis. They did the brothers road trip with me last summer. We went to Cedar Point, and that was the first thing that I recorded. It was actually the 14th episode released, I believe, but we did that just over a year ago now, I guess it was. So that was a lot of fun. I believe if you haven't listened to episode 14, you should. It's about just over an hour long, and my brothers were grilling me with all kinds of different questions, and it was a lot of fun. And I hadn't really nailed down yet what the podcast was going to be about, but that certainly filled in a lot of gaps. And then my first real guest was Heather.
Good times indeed.
And then I've had other guests since then. I've had my ex Trish. I've had my son Bishop. My buddies Bob and Renee and Dave were on an episode with me. I've had people that I haven't actually met in person, such as Larry Nemechek.
Hey, this is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek, and you're listening to Soulforge with Sean Vanderloo.
And Kene Corder. I also had Mugzy from Australia. Remember him? He wanted to become a famous rapper in Australia, like the Australian Eminem. He was a great guy, great music.
Thanks so much for holding this interview with me, man. It's going to be a good time.
I had Whit, and I had Katie, and I've had Karen and Patty. I've had Paul Wright and Daniel Hitch, my buddies from the UK, who I haven't met in person yet.
Hello, I'm Daniel Peter Hitch, author of the Bubbles the Pirate children's book series and the Connected Worlds Chronicles. You're listening to the Soulforge podcast. Keep forging your soul.
I've had Tracy 3 times on the podcast, which was a lot of fun.
Here I am.
I've had Mediterra. You remember her? She was the Earth Mother goddess who's actually gone back to her birth name shortly after that episode came out. She's now known as Lauren Nicole Peters. So I've had all these people, a great time had by all. At least I think so. I hope so. I hope they had fun. I had fun talking with them. And then, of course, all the little mini guests that I've had on those 2 fun episodes, Simple Pleasures and Irrational Fears. All the people that I managed to scoop up from work and on my mail route and that kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun. So many different people, getting all kinds of different perspectives, teaching us something new about ourselves, about the world around us, about the universe. That's really what the Soul Forge is all about, just learning different things that we're not usually or normally exposed to. So let's talk about the whole idea for the podcast in the first place. Where did it come from and all that good stuff? Well, the idea is probably 2 or 3 years old now, I guess. The original idea, when just shortly after the breakup of my marriage and before the divorce happened, but let's see, somewhere around probably this time in 2015, I thought maybe I should do a 5-minute daily update on my dating life and all the adventures that I was on, because I just explored the world of online dating, and really I didn't know what I was doing. I was in a tailspin. I was heartbroken and just a complete and utter mess. So I thought, hey, why don't I do a 5-minute daily tune-up, or whatever I would call it. But it never came to pass. I don't know why I didn't do it. I guess it wasn't the right time to start up this kind of a show. So the idea lingered, and finally last spring I was ready to do it, and so I thought of names, and that was the hardest part. What the show was actually going to be about, how long, what kind of topics, and what did I want from this? Because I already had the Rusted Robot podcast. That's the show that comes out every Sunday. It's about an hour long. It's about geeky pop culture stuff, and it really was taking a lot of my time, because I'd recorded on Saturday and edited on Sunday and all that kind of stuff. So it took up quite a few hours. And did I really, really want to do another show? And I did. So, and here it is. And you're listening to it right now, actually, 60 episodes later.
If you are loving this podcast, you should tell a friend about it.
Spread the word about podcasts you think they would enjoy. There's something for everyone, from entertainment and lifestyle
To news and politics
and more. Share it on social media. Believe it or not, some people don't know how great podcasts are,
or even how to find and listen to them.
You can help change that with a click. Tell your friends about your favorite podcast.
Thanks for spreading the word.
Actually, somebody asked me the other day, a fellow podcaster that I was talking to on Twitter, he says, what was your whole idea behind doing the show, and what do you want out of it? So I told him it was a way to talk about things that people don't normally talk about, bring up all kinds of hidden topics, maybe explore them in a different way. Of course, nothing here on the Soul Forge is meant to go too in-depth. It's basically to whet your appetite and maybe make you think about the topic, maybe go explore it, research it in a different way on your own, such as the reincarnation episode last week. That was just a thought experiment that Tracy and I went through. We don't know anything about it. I don't do a lot of research generally for the podcast, because that's not what it's about. This isn't a scholarly type of show. It's just to get the idea out there, get you thinking. So we were talking, me and the Twitter guy, about what we wanted to do, and we both had the same idea. We want to build a global audience, reach as many people out there as we possibly can. Before the show started, I thought, you know what, this is a pretty cool idea. It's a cool topic. I don't think too many people out there are doing this kind of thing. And so I thought maybe I would get like 2,500 to 5,000 downloads per episode. That was a nice goal. Of course, that never happened. The average downloads is about 50 or so, although some have been lower and some have been over 200. But I haven't reached the, what would you call it, the cultural awareness that I was hoping for. I just want to help people. That's what this is all about. Just get the word out, the ideas spreading through the culture, and maybe starting a dialogue. Not to say that I haven't been successful in any way. I've had dialogue. I've told lots of people at work about the show. They listen to it. It's pretty cool. I've got Richard from Australia, and he often provides feedback, which is great. One of these days, Richard, I'm going to go come and meet you. Hope you're prepared for that. Just like Dan and Paul from the UK, I have to make a trip over there to meet them. And our other buddy, James, who you may have heard on episode 208 of the Rusted Robot podcast last week. We were talking about the Tesla Model X. Actually, he gave us a special report on it. It's a 7-seater car, and he's got a big family, so he needed it. So one day, that's my goal. I'm going to get over to the UK. I'm going to meet Dan, Paul, and James. And actually, when I was speaking with Kine Corder on episode 41, she was the financial therapist. She has encouraged me to save money and go on all these trips that I've wanted to go on all my life, because really, and my entire life has just been about wanting to travel and go on adventures and stuff. And I've never really been anywhere. Road trips to Cedar Point don't really count. I'd like to get in an airplane and go to a different continent. That's a trip. So anyway, long story short, I just want to help people. I want to meet people. I want to get a dialogue going. And maybe I haven't gotten 5,000 downloads per episode, but I'm going to just assume that I've touched people and made them think. And that's a successful show as far as I'm concerned. Before we go any further, I was going to talk about what has happened over the last year or so. One of the things that happened in the last year is that I've joined the ESO Podcast Network. So why don't I just play a promo for one of the podcasts there, and then I'll be right back.
Check out what's been going on with the Pop Culture Cosmos Show and the PCC Multiverse.
I see the potential for basically like another Netflix kind of paradigm shift where here comes this other major player. They have a ton of resources. Apple could change the way that entertainment is consumed.
They say it's the only time this year that you'll have stars from each brand battling each other. And we know it's not going to be the case, but they like to say that, and more power to them, I guess.
Well, it's a big first step, bringing all those superheroes together. There were definitely some parts of the movie that I really enjoyed, and then there were some parts that I thought just kind of fell short of expectation.
Part of it has to be something to do with how it's being promoted, and this is a thing where audiences do not agree with critics.
That's the Pop Culture Cosmos Show.
And the PCC Multiverse, every week on the Podcast Radio Network and Apple Podcasts.
And check out the show today on the ESO Network.
And I'm back. Last year, at this time, I owned my own house and I lived with roommate Carmen. Now, that house is sold and I'm living with my girlfriend Cheryl. I've still got the same job. So I joined a network, I moved, my job has stayed the same. I've moved up in seniority a couple spots because of retirements and stuff, so that's cool. What else has happened in the last year? Nothing overly significant that I can think of, really. Met a lot of cool people through Twitter and through the ESO network and that kind of thing, so that's all very good. I was looking through the list of topics that I've covered over these 60 episodes, and I wrote some of them down. So what have I talked about on the show? I've talked about careers. I've mentioned girlfriends that I've had in the past. And then, of course, I've talked about divorce, anxiety and depression, beauty standards. Had a couple fun episodes about immortality and reincarnation. Talked about hoarding. Had Paul on to talk about aging parents. Talked about race. Talked about confidence with Karen. Had a couple shows actually about minimalism, trying to get the word about that out there. That's something that I'd still like to pursue, although I haven't made a big effort lately. Although I did, back in April, sell a bunch of my stuff at the local Comic-Con. And there's a Comic-Con coming this September in the Sioux. And my brother Robin has got us a table, so I'm going to sell more of my stuff there. Hopefully make a little bit of money, put it in towards my trip fund. And maybe I'll surprise either Richard from Australia or my 3 UK buddies. You never know. I just might show up somewhere and surprise. So I talked about minimalism. I talked about loss. That was actually a fairly popular episode. A lot of downloads on that. Talked about pop culture. Talked about fatherhood. Talked about anger. Talked about happiness, decision making, all kinds of different things. Some topics were covered in detail. Some were not. Wanted to get the words out, the thoughts out, that kind of thing. Basically, when I describe the podcast to people and they ask me what it's about, I say, well, it's about being the best person that you can be, learning new and different things, and basically when it comes down to it, it's a lot of stories about stupid things I have done because of girls. And speaking of girls, 3 girls I speak about the most on the show are Trish, Bridget, and Lynn. Trish, of course, being Bishop's mom, Bridget being the one I married and divorced, and Lynn, the one who brought me to Timmins. Still haven't heard from Lynn again since I invited her on the show. One day I hope to sit down with her and have a nice chat and make that an episode. You never know what's going to happen. So many different ideas, so many different topic possibilities. Now, when I first sat down to do the podcast at the very beginning, before I had it going, I thought about it for a while. I had some episodes recorded, the first 3 or 4, but I needed episode art, like the podcast main page. My buddy Jeff was kind enough to make the SoulForge logo, which was great. And then I needed an opening theme as well. So I reached out to my buddy Jarman from the A Play on Nerds podcast. He is a voice artist, a voiceover artist, I guess. And he said, okay, I'll do it for you. What do you need? And I'm like, okay, I don't know. So I wrote out the opening introduction that plays after I say what episode number it is. And I wrote it out in about 2 minutes because he needed something. So I sent that off to him. And he recorded it word for word. And it actually turned out better than I thought. And there are 8 main ideas that I proposed for the show. And as he reads it out every week, they are as follows: life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss. And have I spoken about all of those topics? Well, let's think. Life. That pretty much encompasses everything. So yeah, I have. Love. Yep, there's been talk about love, which brings us to sex. Yes, I talk about sex in the show. I talked about how I lost my virginity to my friend Stephanie, and I'm still trying to get Stephanie on the show. Hopefully one day she'll be able to do that. I talked about dating, joy and heartache. Those are all things that I've talked about as well. And memories. Yep, there's been specific memories on that. And loss was a major topic. In fact, I've covered it several times. So that's there. I think I've pretty much covered all the topics that I wanted to. But in the opening narration, of course, we talk about life, the universe, and everything. And what that basically means is that there's no topic too big or too small for the podcast. It's about learning new and different things. In fact, it does say, let me be your guide through the adventures of living. And I don't know if I've guided anybody, but I've definitely shared my adventures with you. So there's that.
Hey, podcast fans, Spotify is making it easy for you to stream this podcast and many others like it on your mobile device, desktop app, and smart speaker. Open the app on your mobile device or desktop, click on the browser channel, then click on the podcast section. You'll be able to stay thoroughly entertained during your commute to work, your drive home, and your downtime, thanks to Spotify.
So this is the first full year of the podcast. The original episode came out July 30th. 2017. It used to come out, I tried to do it on Mondays, but it was too hectic because the other one came out on Sundays. So consistently for the last several months, maybe 6 months or 8 months now, I don't even know, but it's come out every Thursday. So this will come out August 2nd, so just slightly after the 1 year mark. Do you want to be a guest on the podcast? Do you have a story to share or tell? Remember, there's all kinds of ways to connect with the show. There's the email address, which is soulforgepodcast@gmail.com, at soulforgepod on Twitter. There's the Facebook page, which I hope you'll join. Go join the Facebook page because every day I share 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, depends on my mood that day, different memes of uplifting thought. It's a lot of fun. You never know what I'm going to put, and lots of people share it, and I get all kinds of comments on it. It's a lot of fun. So join the Facebook group today if you haven't. Do you find that you don't have time to listen to podcasts while you're doing stuff? If you want, why don't you join the YouTube channel? Just look up my name. It's Sean Vanderloo.
Sean Vanderloo.
Sean Vanderloo.
And all the episodes of SoulForge are on there, so you can listen to them while you're doing other things. So have the SoulForge on in the background, and give it a listen that way. Tell your friends. And if you haven't left a 5-star review in the iTunes store yet, that would be so much appreciated. Help us spread the word. See, that's funny. That's another thing. I always say help us, but it's really just me on the show. I'm just the guy here sitting in my room, talking to a microphone, feeling slightly ridiculous sometimes. That's why it's nice to have a co-host every once in a while. A little bit of give and take, feedback, and it makes for a more entertaining show. So all kinds of different formats on the Soul Forge, different topics, different ideas, different depth levels of seriousness and research and flying by the seat of my pants kind of thing. Just all kinds of fun. I love doing it. I hope you'll keep loving listening to it, sharing the links on Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff. But I guess that's it for now. I just want to thank you all again for listening to the episodes. I want to thank all my guests and co-hosts and just everybody out there and anybody that I may have missed. I'm sorry that I missed you, but I haven't forgotten about you, and you're definitely appreciated. So until next time, take care, and remember, it helps if you remember that everyone is doing their best from their level of consciousness. This has been another episode of the Soul Forge Podcast. Contact the show by emailing soulforgepodcast@gmail.com or by tweeting soulforgepod on Twitter. Visit us at soulforgepodcast.com, and remember, the best way to show your support is by leaving a 5-star review in the iTunes Store. And, if you would, please check us out and like us on Facebook. The Soul Forge Podcast was written, produced, scored, edited, engineered, and directed by Sean Vanderloo. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Darth Vaderloo. For more great content, you can listen to my other podcast, The Rusted Robot. Thanks for stopping by the Forge. We'll keep the fires lit until your next visit.
I could do this all day.
As I am chasing after you, my love grows harder to be true. You don't understand what I would do for yours to be mine in this love feud. I simply can't be friends. You've changed my world to the end. It depends on our future. If I've got the chance to hopefully move ya. There's something in your eyes. There's something in my eyes too. I keep on chasing you. Realize that this love is true. From all these months I doubted. In the end I knew I found it. Chasing you and I know it. Chasing you and you love it. Most nights when I sleep I tend to dream, and it's always you in my scene. See, that's what my love of you brings. But real life I don't get the chance to win. I know there's something with us, and I'm sick of chasing you. It's not, so let's settle this problem and come together in this love connection. There's something in your eyes. There's something in my eyes too. I keep on chasing you. Realize that this love is true. From all these months I doubted. In the end I knew I found it. Chasing you and I know it. Chasing you and you love it. Someone that's so beautiful. Someone in the love spiritual. That's why I'm chasing you. You are something that's new. All the time you give me an obstacle. I come back like you're my only goal. Pretty much that tells you something, that I want you and I ain't running. There's something in your eyes. There's something in my eyes too. I keep on chasing you. Realize that this love is true. From all these months I doubted. In the end I knew I found it. Chasing you and I know it. Chasing you and you love it.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.